Thank you so much, Francesca, for your overview. And indeed, it's very impressive, and sometimes we really feel paralyzed on what can we do more. We try to do everything, but we lack the majority here. But of course, we don't have the luxury to stay paralyzed. And I wonder, it's so striking, the current EU reaction to the 28-point plan regarding Ukraine, where the EU very clearly said there's no plan without the Ukrainians, security first, and all these kinds of things that I think, couldn't we use that also for, showing the hypocrisy, but also giving more pressure on the EU to at least judge these plans, these Trumpian plans, in the same way, and stand for the right to self-determination of the Palestinians in the way that we do for Ukraine. We talked last week briefly on the blocking statute. I don't know if you remember, but this was about the ICC, of course, and also you and others who bring evidence to the ICC, how we can make sure that the EU starts to protect the ICC and everyone working there. And there also we discussed how we could use Ukraine there, because Ukraine also has an interest in having the ICC being protected in order to bring Putin there as a war criminal. How could we combine those two more in order to force the EU to stop this double standards game? Because ever since von der Leyen in her State of the Union finally took very careful steps, we didn't hear anything afterwards anymore. So, yeah, I don't know what your ideas would be to bring this further, to use this reference framework, sort of.
Okay, and I might take just a round of questions, if that's okay, Ms. Albanese. So, Ms. Montero.
Thank you, President. Can I speak in Spanish? Yes? Con el micro encendido.
Right, I had to make sure I had the mic on. Thank you very much to the Special Rapporteur. Thank you for bravely defending the rights of the Palestinian people, as you are doing. I know that you believe that's right, but often people in such positions of responsibility prefer to live a comfortable life, but you haven't done that. And I apologize for the fact that you have to deal with such political violence simply for doing your job on behalf of the Palestinian territory. And this genocide is not just about destroying Gaza and then the West Bank, but it's also about silencing and punishing those who are raising their voice against the genocide. I think it's important that we stand together in these moments. The institutions themselves, public representatives, they might have been elected. They might be working in international institutions. They're supposed to be ensuring the rule of law and human rights. And yet, there is a lack of protection. There's complicity. The powers that be in those institutions are aligning with the terrorist state of Israel. So what I wanted to ask you, you've touched on some of these things already, but what are the tools that continue to be at the disposal of the member states and the EU in order to end the genocide? And what are the obligations of the member states and of the EU institutions which are not being upheld? Because if we look at the Trump plan and the UN resolution, there hasn't been a real ceasefire. What there has been is a pact of silence. And that means that the media's attention, the political world, isn't really talking about the genocide which is still happening. So for me it would be useful if you said, what are the member states' obligations? And what are the obligations of the EU which it is not fulfilling? And then also, we're talking about the military complicity, the economic complicity of the EU and the US with those committing genocide. And then more importantly, how do we end this wall of silence that we're up against, which has been imposed by the media? We're not getting much news anymore. We're not getting pictures and images anymore. People aren't talking about Palestine anymore, even on social media. And I think the algorithm is penalizing content which is showing solidarity with Palestine, which therefore silences things. And that's because it's easier to allow the crimes to continue to be committed, and it's easier to allow impunity to continue. So if you have a few words to say about all of those matters, it would be interesting, and that's our obligation at this time.
And I might just ask a question myself and then hand back to you, Ms. Albanese. Just, I suppose, one on that sort of point about the duplicity between the EU's actions when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. And, then it's the hypocrisy in terms of the lack of action for Israel and Palestine. Just looking at the reparations issue as well, and the reconstruction of Ukraine, and how the EU is trying to, I suppose, find a way to make Russia pay for the devastation in Ukraine. So I'd be really interested just to hear your view around what the EU can do, particularly given how much public money has gone into Palestine to only be destroyed, and not just since October 7th, but in previous waves of destruction as well in both the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So just your view on that, and what we could do as parliamentarians to sort of raise that point that this is also public money, apart from the international law violations. This is money that's going in, and Israel can walk away with just wiping their hands. And then the other point, particularly just as well on the blocking statute, and how important it is for us to pressure the EU to enforce that blocking statute and to uphold the importance of the ICC.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think that the double standards that the European Union has demonstrated vis-à-vis Palestine and Ukraine has never been as exposed as now. There is an hysterical reaction that is not without justification provoked by the recent developments. And finally, European countries are realizing that of what has been created at their borders and or against them. And probably they should have preserved diplomacy over war, and maybe it's too late, but it's still shocking the kind of sets of arguments that are deployed vis-à-vis Ukraine, and without any consideration of the similarities with the Palestinians, because I think this eventually manifests the dehumanization of the Palestinians is not something that concerns the Israelis or the Israeli government or the US administration alone. It's quite rooted in Europe as well. Am I surprised? No. Shocking as it is, it's not surprising. Because, again, never before I've noticed the European Union maintaining a posture which is the legacy of the past century. A posture of arrogance, and a posture that allows itself to sit above the law, according to political convenience. There is one point that I would really like to make when it comes to how the European Union has spent money of its citizens in order to support the Palestinian Authority. It's clamorously evident that it has never been in the interest of creating a Palestinian state. Otherwise, why wouldn't most European states, or many European states rather, not recognize the state of Palestine? Why it takes so long to recognize the state of Palestine? Is it really because this state that is a disintegration of pieces of land without an army, with just people trying to resist, attached to what they have, and it represents an existential threat to the most powerful, mighty army in the Middle East? It's not because of that. It's because fundamentally, ideologically, many European countries and their leaders are in line or are supporting Israel's plan, are supporting Zionism as a project for the Jewish people only in the Middle East. This is problematic. Again, I'm not questioning what Israel is. I'm questioning what Israel does. However, there is an ideological posture that many European countries, or at least their governments, are taking that does not allow them to see Palestinians as equal to the Israelis or to others in need for protection. And in any case, has been supporting the Palestinian Authority really helped the Palestinians? I don't think so at all. This year, the Palestinian Authority has killed 7 people, and they were Palestinians. Have you ever seen a Palestinian police officer that the European Union has trained intervene to protect the Palestinian? No, because this is not the goal of the Palestinian Authority. The goal of the Palestinian Authority, according to the Oslo Agreement, is to ensure security coordination with Israel, the unlawful occupier of the Palestinian territory. So look at the paradox. The European Union has ended up paying for enforcing all the mechanisms of the oppression of the Palestinians. This is why I'm saying it's not just a matter of indifference, it's not just a matter of neutrality, it's a matter of supporting a system that has degraded to the point of not serving the Palestinians. Again, this is not a criticism against the Palestinian leadership per se. That doesn't, I mean, this is outside of my mandate, but the structure itself is like blocking the Palestinians in between a rock and a hard place. So no, the Palestinians should be helped free themselves from the Israeli military presence and the colonization, and then they should be allowed to determine themselves as any other people in the world, and without, as it was the dream of the decolonization movement that, I mean, shaped part of our understanding of international law in the past, since the 60s and 70s. And again, we have lost it. We have lost it completely, because today Palestinian self-determination is registered among us in Europe, many of us, as if it was a security problem for Israel, which is unacceptable. When it comes to the protecting EU citizens, yes, of course. I mean, I'm in the same situation as 2 judges of the International Criminal Court. So you have 3 European citizens who are left unprotected to the US prosecutorial measures simply for doing their job. It's appalling, but this is the European Union, not even the pride of defending their own citizens in the face of an abusive regime, because the political regime that the United States embodies today is affecting us. It's not just us, it's affecting all of us, because the banking system responds to American law, not European law. If we had been sanctioned by the state of Australia, we wouldn't be suffering the consequences and the isolation and the persecution we are suffering. But here, even on European soil, when it comes to the finance system and the banking system, we are under US law, unfortunately. Concerning, I thank the Deputy Montero for her words of support. I have to say that political violence toward the Palestinians is what ISAF reflects of, or a symptom of. Anyone standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people in the name of justice, in the name of human rights, is accused of either anti-Semitism or supporting terrorism. And this is, of course, as the aim of silencing and shutting down the debate so that there is no accountability. What should be done? I think that European Union and actually first of all, European law doesn't supersede international law, especially parliamentary norms. Member States cannot violate international law in the name of the EU Association Agreement. If the EU Association Agreement leads to violation of international law, for example, when it comes to cutting ties with Israeli occupation, they have to observe it. They have to comply it. And by the way, there is no possibility to disentangle what Israel is from its occupation. It's Israel which occupies Palestinian land. It's Israel which accommodates 10% of its population in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. It's Israel which has established one water grid from the river to the sea by exploiting the Palestinian water basin that are in the West Bank. It's Israel which maintains an apartheid regime. It's Israel which has destroyed Gaza. It's Israel who starved the population of Gaza, killing at least 300 certain people. So what should be done? Cutting ties with Israel. First of all, stopping to transfer weapons, to including components and buying weapons and security systems from Israel. If this is not taken by the European Union, actually nothing prevents individual states from doing that, including Spain and Slovenia. They have been the most vocal countries in Europe, but have they really cut the military ties and the purchase of surveillance equipment? This is the thing. I mean, or Ireland, there are still ties with Israel. Military and economic ties must be cut. Otherwise, today, these countries, willing or not, like it or not, are complicit with a regime which is genociding the Palestinians. The other thing is that when it comes to the media, I agree with you. It's shocking what the media are doing, but it's also shocking what political leaders are doing and saying. Again, it's the remnants of an ideology that belongs to the past century. And we should really remember Hannah Arendt these days and see in the birth of what she recalls are the rise of totalitarianism, that it starts with people denying reality or stopping believing what is true, what facts are, and starting to believe lies. We are at this point today. We have the truth denied by lies, and it seems that they have the same value. If I were at the European Union or in the European Parliament, I will do everything I can to launch an independent investigation on European media. First of all, how they have covered the last 2 years in Palestine to start with, and why. Who pays them? Who's behind them? Who's at the head of the system? I can tell you the banking system, or the big tech from my last report, the ones after which I was sanctioned. I was sanctioned because I unveiled the system that is upholding the illegality of Israel's occupation and the genocide. But the same should be done at European level. There should be an investigation on who's behind who controls, which interests controls the media, being political party or financial groups. Something is there and needs to be investigated. Or maybe it's simply racism, and it should be investigated as well. And there is a last point that I wanted to make, is that there are businesses that must also be regulated. Businesses do whatever they like. Over the years, they have become actors, like international law actors. They can almost shape the law without assuming the responsibilities or corresponding obligations. And again, this is not normal. Of course, eventually the ultimate responsibility is with member states, failing which there is only one thing that might start bringing accountability, and with this I connect myself with the intervention by the Honourable Cecilia Strada. Accountability. There should be accountability of political leaders for the decisions against international law that they have taken. There should be accountability over businesses, and there should be accountability also of individuals. European individuals that have committed crimes, and this is not just businesses. There are so many double nationals from France, from Germany, from Italy, from Belgium, and probably others who have been fighting in the Israeli army. If it's proven, and in the past 2 years they have been fighting in any of the battalions or serving the Israeli army, the moment they set foot in Europe, or in their country or elsewhere, they should be considered suspects, hence investigated, and if so warrants, arrested, and if so warrants, prosecuted, and if there is enough evidence, according to the judge, they should be convicted. This is where this whole climate of impunity will end, and probably this is the only decent way we can restore a sense of legality after the monstrous 2 years we have just gone through, and not over yet.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. If you'll indulge us, we just have a couple of other colleagues who want to come in and just ask questions for a final round. So I'll take Anna Miranda and Nicolau. So if you want to make your questions, and then I'll pass back to Ms. Albanese.
Thank you, Ms. Albanese. We want also send our solidarity and support also from Argentina, where I was last week with the Palestinian organization of civil society there, and it's a Jewish person that prepared a book with the name of your report, and he was also very happy that you will be next these days in the Parliament, and they send a lot of support from Argentina, where the thematic is also horrible because it's also very reduced by the extreme right government. And second thing is the agreement of the EU-Israel Association, especially in the imports of goods produced in the settlements. Do you agree, or do you think it's possible to denounce the European Union by the importation of goods produced in the settlements? Because I think we, as MEPs, that we have a difficult situation here denouncing the genocide, and we are not the majority of the plenary, and we battle all the time together in this plenary, in this delegation also, and also with our civil societies in our countries. Maybe we can prepare a complaint against the European Union denouncing this complicity by the importation of goods. Do you think it's a good idea or not? Because you are the most expert in the world, and we are very proud of you. And I want to say that because it's also the civil society battling in our countries all the time, and with a lot of punitions, with a lot of repression. And they want that we can do more, but we have the instruments that we have, the tools that we have, with parliamentary questions, with denouncing, with complaints, but maybe we can do a step more and denounce also the European Union by the complicity in the importation of goods and non-compliance with the EU Association Agreement. Thank you.
Yes. Let me begin by stating my name. I'm Eleftherios Nicolaou. I'm MEP of the Communist Party of Greece. I come from a country, Greece, and a state that has consistently, for the past 20 years, under all kinds of governments, social democratic, new liberal, coalition governments, upgraded its relations with Israel politically, economically, militarily, on the energetic sector. It is a staunch supporter of Israel in all forums. And we know that this is a situation that is actually pertinent to many of the countries of the European Union. Of course, we acknowledge your deep commitment in the struggle of the Palestinian people, working in an international organization that it is not in the best of correlation of forces now. But at the same time, I think that there are two points of flexion between what you had said in your input and the way I am thinking of things and we are thinking of things. And this would be, the first of all, was that you were using a bit Europe and the EU interchangeably. I feel that this is not the case, because EU has its content is set. EU is an interstate union of capitalist states that serve specific interests. And in the line of the EU today, it is a war economy and a war preparation, mainly focused in the situation of the imperialist war in Ukraine, that it is a clash between capitalist Russia and Euro-Atlanticism generally. And this plan, in my view, incorporates and includes Israel. And this is actually, in our case, in the Greek case, you know, one of the biggest military industries is actually bought by Rafael Industries of Israel. So in this context, I don't think that we should be taken by surprise if international law is actually violated. But international law has been violated a lot of times in the past. So we can't say that it is something, it is a remnant of the past. It is something that is very pertinent because diplomacy has given its place to military confrontation more and more to resolve issues between the antagonism and competition between the states. So has there been change in the EU and in our countries? There has been a bit of change in how they see the Palestinian people in this struggle. Because you have had some member states that recognize the state of Palestine. Unfortunately, not the country where I come from, even though we have a unanimous parliamentary motion since 2015 and has not been set into motion. 10 years now, 10 years, December 2015 until today. What has been the element that brought about this change? And we have seen it in the parliament. I mean, if you see how some colleagues from the extreme right or the EPP or even Renew were speaking about the Palestinian people in the struggle 2 years ago and how they speak now, you see that there is a change. The change has been due to the very strong response of the peoples of the countries of the EU that have been consistently for all these years on the street expressing their solidarity with the struggle of the Palestinian people. So, in order to be more concise and to the point on what I was meant to ask you, given also your authority and the very deep work that you have done in all your reports on the situation on the ground. We are now after an, in my view, despicable accord in quotes, Trump-Netanyahu accord, that has been also incorporated and included by the member states of the EU, a vast majority as a good event, that has had all the negative and atrocious results that you have stated in your report and were relevant to the discussion that we're doing. Which is, for us, it's clear what it is. The new plan, the new Middle East plan that we have seen in the past is the continuation of the Abraham Accords that we have seen, all in detriment of the Palestinian people and its interests. So I would like to know, what are the dynamics now in the UN afterwards? What do you see as a dynamic in also the EU member states vis-à-vis the new situation? What do you think that there will be their positioning in the coming years? And I'm saying that taking into account that in the end, in order to curb the support of Israel by our own member states, and we have a lot of experience. You know, Greece was a non-permanent member of the Security Council, is still a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, and has done nothing in order to promote what the Greek people has been saying, that we have been dozens upon dozens of thousands of people in the streets continuously, even today. That in the end of the day, we need to go against our own governments. Because this is, in my view, the territory that we need to continue giving the struggle, to push forward for a Palestinian state, independent, free, within the 1967 borders, with territorial integrity, for the end of occupation, for the end of the colonies, for the right of the refugees to return. I mean, working towards that in the mass movement, in the trade unions, there could be, in our view, there is the place where we can do a difference and we can push a lot of pressure that will also push forward all the positive things that we have seen the previous year, to particularly now that I feel that there will be a curb on how the EU member states were seeing the situation, particularly because we have had this agreement with all these elements that you were stating. So thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Nicola. I have Rudy is going to just ask a short question as well, Ms. Albanese, and then I might just have one other question, and then we'll pass back to you to wrap up.
Yes, very short. Well, not actually a real question, but a comment. I found it very interesting what you said about people from countries, also mine, Belgium. I see a lot of people coming back who fought actually in the war, and they're even very proud of it. They communicate very openly, and it is in a contrast of what we have seen before. Everybody who was going to fight or even sometimes visit the Middle East during the last war there was immediately, oh, this is a potential terrorist because he was fighting in the Middle East, and now it's completely silence. I mean, the right wing, although they always talk about security and how to watch the borders that no terrorists come inside, now they receive with open hands, even if they are proud of it. And I think, yeah, maybe you could give some advice how we could more stress this item, because I think it's an item that also would be very, let's say, would be very accepted also in the public in general. Thank you.
Okay, and just my question, I know you're familiar with the Irish Occupied Territories Bill, and just given our Greek colleague is talking about the mobilisation and alliances that have been built with civil society, with trade unions, with certain politicians all mobilising to see action. But I know from your report, just maybe to remind that if there is the absence of that EU consensus on taking action, whether it's suspension of the trade agreement, an arms embargo, or even just upholding the ICJ ruling of July 2024, how important is it that EU member states are in compliance with law, or that argument that if there's an absence of EU consensus, it doesn't let a member state off the hook, and just your opinion on the inclusion of services in that bill?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Look, on the first question, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer the denunciation before of the EU association agreement beyond what I've said. I'm not an expert of EU law, but I don't think that this would be difficult to answer for some for experts themselves. Other than, again, it doesn't take long to suspend that agreement, as long as there is the political will, which is completely lacking. And the question is why? With the European surveys, people's survey showing that between 60 and 70% of Europeans think that Israel is committing genocide and they want the end, or war crimes and crimes against humanity, and therefore they want the end of the European complicity and the suspension of the agreement. We see two things. On the one hand, the European leadership go ahead no matter what, but also we see a repression of dissent at the individual states level, and this is extremely serious. There is a repression of fundamental freedoms of European citizens in the name of protecting the interest of a state who's not even a member of the European Union, although I agree with the comment that was made that yes, it's treated as Israel is treated as a de facto member of the European Union. A case in point is what I recently discovered by visiting Italy, where apparently the transfer of weapons produced in Italy and transiting through Italy has been allowed in violation of a national law that only allows the unchecked transfer toward European countries. And when the authorities have been asked why so, why there have not been checks on the transits toward Israel, the answer was, well, they're like us. They are one of us. What does it mean, one of us? Where is this alliance? And again, I jump to the last question. The European member states, yes, the European Union, I agree with Honourable Alavano's comment that European Union is different from Europe and from European states. However, this only goes to the point that European states cannot invoke European Union agreements in order not to comply with their international law obligations. And yes, there has never been such a hiatus between the will of the people and enacted policies at the European level. It's clear what is happening, but I also see that the people are not stopping. I mean, if Italy, my own country, is an example, in the past two months there have been strikes after strikes, and of course the leading the government and the leading political coalition has jumped on the opportunity of use the word ceasefire and peace in order to slam the protesters, the workers and others, saying, you see, you obtained what you wanted, now what do you want? People want the end of the slaughter. People want the end of the abuses, the end of the torment inflicted against the people in which they see themselves today. They see their vulnerability. Because clearly this is not a political establishment that is led by the ideal of protecting the people. No, it's mainly dominated by the idea of protecting given financial interess. It doesn't sound the right constellation to pave the way toward peace. So I have the same feeling and the same fear that the future will be much harsher than our recent past, and we will regret the time we have wasted trying to concoct solution, because the solution is much closer, and it's really to encourage the people to strike, encourage the people to boycott themselves the Israeli or the businesses connected to the Israeli occupation, as it has been. I mean, it was the global solidarity movement which contributed substantively to the collapse of the apartheid in South Africa. So surely non-member states, I mean, it took a while to many member states, including European states, to cut ties with apartheid South Africa. It really took decades, and still it happened, and it will happen even with Israel. Although the situation is much more complicated now because of the ideological underpinnings protecting and defending Israel from within Europe. And again, I don't think that it's about religious affiliation. I don't think that it has much to do with it at all. It has to do with an ideology which is racist toward any other. Then, I mean, the theory of the pure race, it's still hard to overcome. This is the reality. We are still there racist. And I've been saying that brutally. I know that it's brazen. I know that it's a strong statement, but I really want people to reflect upon this. We are still coping with the legacy of the last century's racism, and it's an undone legacy. The last point I wanted to make, on the soldiers, I fully agree. I mean, I was recently in Belgium, and during a conference, of course, the people who made the comment I'm about to report were the minority, but there was a group of people in a university conference, in a university debate, when I announced this concept that there are there are Israeli soldiers with European nationality coming back to Europe. Someone shouted in the room, "They are heroes." Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, we cannot shout at people who have this idea. We need to bring them to see the inhumanity in their statement and how serious it is. But we have to also to remember that we are the continent which slaughtered 6 million Jews and Roma and Sintis. Yes, I mean, we've come to terms somewhat with our sense of guilt toward the Jews, but look at how Roma and Sinti are still treated in Europe. And I say, I fully understand the Jewish people and their attachment to Israel, because probably, hadn't they had Israel, they would be treated like the Roma and Sinti today. Still discriminated, because it was not that after the the Soviet Union liberated, broke into the concentration camp and started the dismantlement. The process that led to the dismantlement of the concentration camp is not, and we need to reappropriate our history, is not that the Jewish people were fully reintegrated. They had to be shipped somewhere outside of Europe. And Israel was the only place that was left for many of them. So intimately, I do understand the deep love and the existential fear that the Jewish people have in Europe, because it's built into their system. And I do think that this is a lesson for us and to understand, that the system is, that the world is changing, and probably this is the opportunity for us to shift. Last point concerning the Irish occupied bills. It's very sad that Ireland is still there discussing the occupation bills, because again, by the time the occupation bills will be passed, most probably it will be so outdated, in the sense that, look at the fact that you cannot just discriminate against the settlement goods. Occupation must mean everything that is connected to the occupation. So the fact that the Israeli economy is not separable from that of the occupation. So I truly hope that this will be built in, this awareness will be built into the bill, and that it will be approved soon. Of course, it should be done by other countries as well. And good luck with it.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Albanese, for your time and for your very frank and honest responses to everybody's questions. We covered a multitude of topics there today, but just also to say we really appreciate the work that you're doing, and we know that Palestinians is at the heart of all of us when we're doing our work on this delegation and when you're doing your work, and we never lose sight of that. But it is also important to thank you personally for the work and the sacrifices that you experience in doing your job. It is really valued by the members of this delegation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to come and exchange with you.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I would just ask if anybody has any other business that they wish to put to the floor. No? Okay, well then that's the closing of today's meeting, and the Secretariat will be in touch about the time and the date of the next meeting. And once again, just to thank you for your time and for your questions.